All right, guys, our next guest is an absolute MMA legend, a fan favorite, and former UFC champion who does an incredible job on the commentary desk for UFC events. Not to mention his own YouTube channel, which is just absolutely blown up, man. And you've got obviously over 319,000 subscribers and countings, fantastic breakdowns, Q&As, live shows. He's also got the Believe You Me podcast with Michael Bisping, absolutely killing it with his live shows. And he's coming here to our neck of the woods in Australia in November. Michael, the Count Bisping, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you, man? With the sweet set.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. That was quite the introduction. I appreciate you, fellas. Yeah, always good to talk to you. Hope you're well.
Yeah, man. And also going to New Zealand for a show as well. So I know a lot of fans over there are very excited too. So that's going to be really, really cool. Man,
yeah, for people that don't know about that real quick, it's called Tales from the Octagon. And I don't know how I found myself in this situation, but I did a tour last year in the UK. We did 4 dates, and it was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. Walking out there in front of 3,500 people, standing on stage and talking by myself for 90 minutes. Very daunting, but it went well. People loved it, and I guess they wanted to do a round 2. And yeah, as you mentioned, the promoters then they booked into, I think it's Melbourne. I should know this, but I apologize. Melbourne, Gold Coast, Sydney, and there's one other, and then Auckland as well.
Yeah, you're doing Brisbane, Gold Coast,
Brisbane.
Sydney.
There you go. Yeah. You guys know. You got this.
What's one of the craziest fan interactions you've had, Michael? Maybe like over the years, somebody running up to you in a hotel, or maybe like at one of these events. What are some of the things that go down?
I mean, I don't like to sit here and talk about how multiple grown men have cried their eyes out from meeting me, because that makes me sound very weird. But I'll give you a good one. This was a long time ago when I lived back home in the hometown of Clitheroe, England. I was on a run. I was training for a fight, and I'm running along the street, and this car's driving along, and the guy winds his window down. He's like, "Holy shit, Michael Bisping!" I'm like, "Oh mate, how you doing?" And he wasn't looking where he was going. He fucking crashed into another car. Poor guy. Boom. Head-on collision. He wasn't hurt. I shouldn't laugh. He wasn't hurt. Nobody was hurt. The car was kind of smashed to pieces though. So there we go. We'll go with that one.
Did you keep running or did you help him? Were you like, "Hey, dude, I'm training. Sorry, man."
I stopped for a second. The other guy that he ran into was pissed off, but he was fine. He got out of the car. I said, "You guys good? You fine?" I'm like, "Okay. I'm training for a fight, fellas. I'm sorry. I'm out of here."
That's awesome. Well, the guy, listen, if he went on to live, what a great story he had to tell his family in the hospital.
He was fine.
Speaking of your YouTube, man, I just want to say that I know that we had this heavyweight showdown this past weekend, but we noticed on the prediction video on your YouTube channel, you highlighted the fact that Francis Ngannou has had a lot of time to improve, prepare himself, and his team at Extreme Couture had Jon Jones on their mind as a potential fight for a while. So I got to ask you, man, with this fight just happening this past weekend, how surprised were you by the wrestling that we saw from Francis Ngannou?
Well, I was surprised, to be honest, because even though I picked him to win and I did expect to see, a better technical skill set from him, I didn't expect that performance, if I'm honest. Now, of course, there was still, it wasn't a perfect performance, and he certainly slowed down and he could have capitalized on some positions better. But as I said on the YouTube video, he, in his mind, when he beat Stipe, was probably getting ready for the greatest of all time. Training in at Extreme Couture with Eric Nixick in America, access to great wrestlers. If he's not working on his wrestling, he's a fool. And I know he's not a fool. He's a very smart man, and his coaches are very smart, some of the best in the business. So if you look at the first fight with Stipe to the second fight, there was massive improvements there. And then another year since the last Stipe fight, since he won the belt, you would be a fool to not think that he made improvements. And that's what we saw. He was way more composed. He hit that sweep in the 5th round. He was hitting takedowns. Now, of course, that doesn't mean Francis is now a wrestler, but he knows some takedowns and he's got another wrinkle to his game. And in hindsight, when you're fighting a French kickboxer, it's the perfect game plan. I'm actually annoyed at myself for not clicking that one, for not figuring that one out.
Yeah, well, so then it brings us to the question of, like, how do you think Jon Jones would do in Ngannou? If the fight were to happen next, are you giving Francis more of a chance because of the improvements that we saw with his wrestling? And obviously, like, it's hard to compare Francis's wrestling to Jon Jones's wrestling. Jon Jones is very, very good at done it for many, many years. But I almost feel like Francis, and this may sound like a very, like, just let him bang, bro. Like, uneducated thing to say, but Francis's strength in a lot of ways can be an equalizer. Like at times when he was just sort of out muscling Ciryl Gane. What do you make of that one?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And only until they fight will we really know the answer to that. However, it all depends on Jon Jones' wrestling. If Jon can't take him down, he ain't beating Francis Ngannou. And I don't care about he's the master of game plans and all this type of stuff. If you're forced to stand toe-to-toe with Francis Ngannou and you cannot take him down, Jon's probably going to get knocked out. Let's be honest. We all know how hard he hits. He looked great Saturday night. He was working the body more than just going for the head. That shows a lot of maturity. And in terms of wrestling, I mean, yes, of course, Jon's a better wrestler. But Francis is bloody strong and he's getting better at wrestling all the time. And I think it was DC said on Saturday night, you know, height-wise, they're kind of similar, Ciryl and Francis. But when you looked at their legs, the thighs, the ass on Francis Ngannou, absolutely gigantic. And I know that sounds like a weird comment talking about the size of Francis. I thought it was Nicki Minaj
in there for a second.
Yeah, but that's where the power comes from. It really does, you know. So yeah, I mean, listen, we can sit here and ponder all day long, but until the fight happens, we don't know. We just don't know.
Well, that got us thinking because Francis fought with a torn up knee and got us thinking about your career, Mike. Obviously, you fought GSP with the eye injury, but aside from that, take us into your career, dude. What's the craziest injury that you can think back to that you've actually fought with in the octagon that many fans probably didn't know about?
Well, obviously when I fought George St. Pierre, this is in my book, and most people in the world haven't read my book, so they probably don't know. And I hate saying this because it sounds like I'm making an excuse, and I'm not. George St. Pierre is a class act. I've got so much respect for him, and he's truly one of the best ever. So with that said, I had a great training camp. On the last day of my camp, Dean Amasinga, he was on The Ultimate Fighter. He's now one of the directors for the UFC Performance Institute in Shanghai. He was in my camp, and I shouldn't have done a sparring session a week out, but I wanted to do it. And so I did 5 rounds with a number of guys. And on the last round, Dean tried with his life depended on it to get a takedown. and he landed on top of me. And as soon as he landed, I just said, and I just screamed at the top of my voice because I knew what it was. My ribs were done. Now, I knew also because of my eye, I was on borrowed time. So there was no way I was pulling out of that fight, especially with George, as popular as he is and what a pay-per-view draw he is. And let's be honest, you know, how much money I was going to earn from that fight when I was pretty much at the end of my career. So I went and saw my doctor and he said, yeah, your ribs aren't broken, but all the cartilage around your ribs is torn, so there's nothing we can do for it. It's just going to take time. And I'm like, Doc, yeah. And he said, you can't fight, Michael. You know, and I was in so much pain. You know what it is with your ribs. You can't even breathe. You can't move. And again, I sound like I'm making excuses. I'm not. This is what happened. And I said, I'm not pulling out the fight, Doc. There is not a chance in hell I'm going to pull out the fight. So we came up with a plan. He gave me a needle full of lidocaine. And he said, what you can do is with the lidocaine, he said, you can inject it into your cartilage and it will numb the pain. It won't fix it, but you won't feel the pain. Now, the problem is it only lasts for about 45 minutes to an hour. So you're going to have to do it in the locker room before you go out. and then he said, and you're going to have to be really careful because if you get it wrong, you can puncture your lung and you can die.
Oh, great.
And I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. So no worries. What you do is when you get to the locker room, FaceTime me and I'll talk you through it. So anyway, obviously I'm not a guy that cheats. So I spoke to the UFC and I said about this lidocaine. He said, well, you got to speak to the commission. Lidocaine is not a banned substance, but if you tell them that you need to do this, they're going to know about the injury and they'll probably pull you from the fight because you're not fit to fight. Right. So, you know, we're in one of these situations. So anyway, I think, screw it, I won't tell anyone. Saturday night, we're in Madison Square Garden. Freddie Roach is watching me have my hands wrapped and all the rest of it. And I'm like, okay, now comes the time. I'm going to have to go and inject myself with a lidocaine. And I went to the toilet and I was like, what am I doing? No, this is crazy. So I threw that away. And yeah, to answer your question, I went out there and fought George with very, very badly torn cartilage. But hey, it is what it is. People don't really Yeah, well, not often do they go into a fight 100%. So I'm not taking anything away from him. You asked the question. Didn't know you were going to ask that, but there you go. There's a story for you.
I love the story, though. I still can't believe, you fought with all that going on. The ribs, as everybody knows, is like, one of the worst
One eye
things.
is the main thing, let's be honest.
Yeah, but I know, but that's obviously.
What was working for that fight? No ribs, no eye. It was all falling apart.
No knees. I've got bloody 2 fake knees these days as well. No, yeah. Hey, I'll see Francis Ngannou who's torn MCL and I'll raise it by 10.
Yeah, I feel like that story reminds me of like John Wick when he's like shot a million times and he goes to the little doctor and he fixes him up. You're FaceTiming this guy. I imagine he's like working on a dog somewhere. Like, I'll be right with you, Mike, with the lidocaine. No worries.
Yeah. It's just a flesh wound. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you'll be right. So obviously we've got this massive fight. I wish I would say that it was happening in our neck of the woods, but it's not. But it feels like it because obviously Whittaker and Adesanya doing it again kind of reminds us of you and Luke Rockhold back in the day, where obviously he got the first one, you came back in the second one, he was the heavy favorite, you got the win and proved a lot of doubters wrong. I wonder if you see a lot of similarities between Whittaker and Adesanya in this one, and just in general, like the differences heading into this fight compared to the first one.
Yeah, well, there has to be a lot of differences if you're Robert Whittaker, because the first fight didn't go well. His approach wasn't good. He was trying to rush it. He was lunging in from a distance. And you can't do that against somebody like Israel Adesanya. He's far too precise. He's an absolute sniper in there. He's very skilled. He's very fast. And he has the reach advantage. Now, it's that reach advantage and the range that he has that was causing Robert to lunge in. He was trying to jump in with a left hook. Saw that coming a mile away. So he has to change a lot of things, and I think he will. Now, I'm not going to disrespect the champ. What Israel Adesanya has done, what he has achieved, is fantastic. It really is sensational. He's lapping everybody now. He's going round and round. We know Robert said recently when he saw the fight with Jan Blachowicz that laid out the blueprint on how to beat Israel. Well, that's not really a big revelation, is it? We all know he's a kickboxer. Take him down. But it's been harder to take him down than what people think. Israel's takedown defense has been very good. What Robert needs to do in this one, and I think more what he's talking about here, is letting Israel attack him. That's what we saw Jan Blachowicz do. He was standing his ground pretty much and letting Israel come forward and be the aggressor, and that makes it easier to counter. Also, Robert's got to use a lot of feints, a lot of misdirection. The feints are the key to everything, right? When he throws feints, make Israel think that he's going to throw a right hand or whatever, then Israel reacts, and then that's when he attacks. So he's got to draw the attack out of Israel, but easier said than done. Another thing that Jan Blachowicz did was take him down in the center of the octagon. MMA fighters spend a tremendous amount of time against a padded wall or against a cage, just drilling takedown defense against the fence, right? When you're against the fence, it's easier because if someone's trying to take you down, you can lean on that wall. And if you do get taken down on the fence, and if you do get taken down, it's easier to get up by the fence because, again, you can lean on it. And if somebody pushes you forward, well, they're pushing you into the fence. Out in the open, there's nothing to help you. So if you're trying to stay on your feet, there's no fence to lean on, you'll fall down. If you're trying to get back on your feet, the person on top just has to drive forward and you go back down. So I think that did reveal some things for Robert. We know Robert's a great wrestler. I think Robert Whittaker that we saw against Kelvin Gastelum, I called that fight at the Apex and I was blown away. That was a masterclass. That was Robert's best performance, I think. I was totally blown away by the skill of the guy. And I'm not saying he's going to win this fight, but I think I know for a fact that this fight is going to be remarkably different from the first one.
Yeah, well, the first one was kind of a bit of a blowout. Imagine if we see, a bit of a war in this one. And fantastic analysis, Mike. I just wanted to also ask, for me, what was interesting was seeing Robert be so candid and talk about the ego and admit that he had a bit of an ego in the first one and how he's kind of been on a journey to let a lot of that go and sort of, he didn't say for a long time, he didn't want to acknowledge that there was a rivalry or that he didn't like Adesanya, but now he's saying that, yep, I had so much hate for the guy and it consumed me and I fought differently. As a fighter, what does that tell you when you see somebody, admitting all those things? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that probably felt similar ways to their opponents, but they never admitted those things, whether it was to the public or even to themselves.
Yeah, well, it's a sign of maturity. You know, and yes, we can call it ego. You can call it jealousy. That would probably be another word. And I'm not saying because I've spoken to Robert, but he was the champ, and you're standing there, and this guy's got everything that you want, everything that you've worked for, everything that you've sacrificed for. This guy's come in, this goddamn kickboxer, and now he's the man. So that has all these negative emotions, and sometimes you're not even conscious of them. You know what I mean? For some reason, you just don't like this guy, and you don't know why, and you think, oh, it's because of his mouth, or because if he's cocky, or the way that he carries himself. It's not. It's because he's got what you want. It's because he's the champ, and he's made you look stupid, and he beat you in a fight. Ego can be a fighter's best friend and its worst enemy. You need that ego. You need to be able to believe in yourself and believe that you're better. If you don't believe you're better, you're probably going to lose the fight, because you're going to doubt yourself. Like when you throw a punch, you're going to close your eyes and you're not really going to commit to it, because you think, crap, this guy's going to knock me out. So you need that ego. You need that self-belief, but it can also be your worst enemy, because obviously ego, you get too confident, you get complacent, you get lazy. You think you don't give the guy the respect that they deserve. As I say, well, I didn't know those things, what you said there about Robert. If he has done that, he's done some self-realization, if you will. He's done some, some soul searching, if you will. That's amazing, because that's what you got to do. When you lose a fight, you have to sit back and you have to look and you have to think, right, why did I lose that fight? What do I have to address? And of course, his approach, his strategy is what he needs to address. And certainly there were some mental things as well. And this is the most important tool. The mind controls everything, okay? It's all well and good being in shape, being strong, being fast, being technical. If the mind isn't right, you're not going to have any success.
Did you do some soul searching before the second Luke Rockhold fight?
Not really.
You only had like 8 days, I guess.
I was too busy making weight. I was like, when I found out about that, I stepped on a scale and I had 2 weeks, and I was like, shit, I'm 33 pounds over. Me and my fat mouth, I've done it again.
That was probably a good thing though, right? Like just focusing on the weight cut and not having that time to really mentally just having to sit there and think about it for that long.
Yeah. Oh, no. That was huge. And you know what? To be honest, I kind of did have a different approach. And I'll give a big shout out to my coach and mentor and very good friend, Jason Perillo here.
Legend.
But yeah, because he worked on the mental side of things with me. And that's why I ended up winning that belt. And whenever I was getting ready for a fight, and I've been on here before and been a little bit of a dick at times, you know what I mean? So I apologize. But like when you're in a high pressure situation, sometimes you don't deal with that pressure very well. And when you want to be successful at something, you get so focused on it, and it brings out sometimes not an attractive side of you. And I remember when I was training for fights, I would get so angry and I would get so mad because it meant so much to me. I would work my ass off. I would do the extra miles. I would go to every single training session. First person to get there, last person to leave, all that shit. You know what I mean? But I was tense, I was angry, I was mad. And there's many, many different examples I could bring up and talk to you about. But I remember when I was training for that Luke Rockhold fight. So I only had 2 weeks. Well, realistically, 1 week, because then it's fight week. So I had 1 week to train. And I was doing, some pads. And then I was doing jiu-jitsu with Brady Fink, my jiu-jitsu coach. And, Brady's a high level, like third degree black belt at Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So it's not like I was dominating when it was going my way all the time. And I was getting stressed and I was getting mad and I was being a prick, and I said some things I regret. And Jason pulled me to one side. He said, listen, Michael, he said, you're fighting for the world title next week. Okay. We think you're going to win. We're training for you. We believe in you and we think you're going to win. But the reality is you might not win. Okay. He said, but right now you're at the top of the food chain. Okay. There's you and the champ on the poster. You're the main event on pay-per-view. Every little kid, every young man that laces up a pair of gloves, that dreams of being a champion. This is it. This is the moment. It doesn't get any bigger than this. And you might lose this fight. We think you're going to win, but you might lose. He said, so this might be it. This might be the moment. This might be the absolute pinnacle of your career. So how about we go through it with a fucking smile on our face? How about we enjoy this process Or you can be an uptight dickhead if you want. You know what I mean? Or we can go through this and we can all have a laugh like brothers, and we can have a great time and make some amazing memories. And I thought, geez, you know what? You're absolutely right. Do you know? I was like, I'm sorry. It just means so much to me. I just want it so much that I'm so nervous and feel the pressure. But that was a tremendous piece of advice.
Yeah, very inspirational. And I feel like these are the kind of stories people will get to hear through the live shows. And even though the live show looks like a great amount of time and people are going to get lots of laughs, I feel like people are going to take away a lot of little nuggets from it as well. By the way,
can I just say something on that? Yeah. I'm terrified because when I did the first show, it was at the O2 in London, and I walked out. And the tour manager said to me, he said, what do you want on stage with you? I said, well, have me a towel because I'm going to be sweating. I know that because I'm terrified. I said, have me a bottle of water. And, have me a glass of wine. Have me a glass of wine because, just quell my nerves. So anyway, and I had a cheeky one backstage as well because of the nerves. And I walk out and I start talking and it's all kind of going well. And I stop for a second, I take a glass of wine. And everyone chants, down it, down it, down it. Because people know my reputation, even though it's bullshit and I don't deserve it. Maybe a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm like, all right, well, this is what they paid to see. This is what they want. So I downed a glass of wine. A second later, boom, like a double vodka gets put on the stage. And I'm like, and then another one, and then another one. And they just kept bringing up drinks, and then thousands of people chanting, down it, down it, down it. In the end, I'm like, guys, because I was playing the part. So, okay. And it did help because it definitely loosened my inhibitions. I wasn't quite as nervous anymore, and I was getting a little bit rowdy on the microphone. But, and everyone was having a great time. But I'm like, guys, if I down all these drinks on this stage, because Birmingham was the worst, there must have been 50 drinks on the stage. So the security came up and they're like, listen, no more. Anyway, so that's the backstory. That's why I'm dreading Australia. My God, if I thought Birmingham and Glasgow was bad, I can only imagine what goes down when I get to Australia.
Yeah, it's gonna be way worse. Brace yourself. Also, double vodkas. Oscar Willis must have been in the crowd. Shout out to Oscar.
Yeah, in Australia, they might be putting up fire extinguishers on the stage after they saw what happened at one of the shows. They might be like, do it, Mike. But dude, before you come back to Australia, I saw the UFC's returning to London, and we know your manager mentioned to us you're doing some kind of special appearance with the fans as well in March over there too. Is that true? And
yeah, I'm sitting here. The cogs are turning. I'm like, hold on, what have I not mentioned? So I have a documentary coming out. Very egotistically called Bisping. It was called Built for This. Hey, that wasn't my doing. Okay, the producer was like, we should just call it Bisping. I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, so that's been in the makings now for 4 years, but obviously with the pandemic and things, kind of slow things down. And I'm very proud of it. It's not a documentary like people would think. It's not all, glitz and glamour and aren't I great and all the rest of it. It goes into and it analyzes that the emotions of what fighters go through. And, I visit some of my losses and I talk about my feelings, and there's a lot of great guests on there. We've got Vin Diesel, we've got Mickey Rourke, we've got Joe Rogan, Dana White, Daniel Cormier, Scott Adkins, Michael Joe White, Rashard Evans. We got tons of great mixed martial arts talent and some actors as well and fans of the sport that really lend a lot of time. So I'll be out there a week before UFC London doing some promotional things, and I'll be attending the premiere in Manchester. So I'm very excited for that. But March 19th, UFC London, we are back. It's been 3 years. I can't wait.
Yeah, 100%. And I've got a soft spot, a special spot in my heart for London and the UK, namely because every time my girlfriend and I are watching Netflix and there's shows that we can't watch on the stupid Australian version of Netflix, all of a sudden I fire up my NordVPN. One click of a button, my computer thinks that all of a sudden I'm in the United Kingdom, and bang, a whole new world of movies and TV shows at my disposal. Same goes for Stan, same goes for Hulu or any other streaming service. And also for anybody buying UFC pay-per-views, Little Birdie told me that the UK get their pay-per-views just a little bit cheaper. So if you want a legal, easy way to buy pay-per-views, NordVPN, change your virtual location with one touch of a button. Australia Hey, I bought UFC 270, no price rise for me so far. So if you want to buy pay-per-views for cheap, use a VPN like NordVPN, change your virtual location with one touch of a button. You've got access to over 59 different countries. Amazing speed thanks to NordLinks. The worst thing in the world is when you use a VPN to stream something, a TV show, YouTube, whatever, and then all of a sudden you're buffering like it's 1986 with 56K internet. So you stream securely. Bisping's going over to London. There's a lot of dodgy Wi-Fi's in airports, so you want to make sure you've got a VPN, a trusty VPN like NordVPN to protect all your data, your browser history, credit card details, everything. And why not do it with the world's best, which is NordVPN? Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. And there's nothing to it just to do it. And the place to do it is nordvpn.com/submission. And use the code word submission, get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan plus one additional month for free. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So do it today. It's the equivalent of buying a cup of coffee every month, and you guys get to get everything that you need for that small price. Do it today with Nord. Now, Cass, with the sports right now, obviously big fights coming up. We're talking about Israel versus Whittaker. But there's also the NFL going down right now in the States, and with the Super Bowl right around the corner, there's only one place to put your bets down, and that is with MyBookie. Double your first deposit right now with the code word submission. All the best prop bets, all the best bets out there, no matter what the sport is. You guys can go on, do it, NHL, NBA, whatever it is, UFC, boxing. MyBookie is the place for you guys to go today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with the code word submission. Trust me, with the Super Bowl, there's going to be so many prop bets, so many opportunities to make money. What kind of songs will be played in the halftime show? That's what I'm excited about. We don't really watch NFL down here, and Tom Brady is out. Tom Brady is out. That's the only player I know. But if you guys are excited about the game, only one place to make your money and double your first deposit, and that is at MyBookie with the code word submission, Cass.
That's all right, though, because with Valentine's Day around the corner, you can make your own Super Bowl, or Super Bowls, I should say, with the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. Shave your beans and be Valentine's Day ready. We're only 2 weeks away. So training camp starts now. Order the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 because along with power, you get the precision, you get the skin-safe technology. No more, stretching your sack out, doing the old bat wing with a rusty razor. You can just glide over it with the Lawnmower 4.0. It's got a light, so you can do it, in a cave. If you were to be in one, it's waterproof, so you just do it in the shower. And then when you're done, throw it on the wireless rechargeable dock. And then it's got a travel lock so that if you stick it in your bag, you're not gonna end up on Airport Security Australia. And then with the Performance Package 4.0, you get the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer as well. You get the Crop Preserver ball deodorant and Crop Reviver ball toner. Let's say you're on a date, you go to the bathroom, you're like, ugh, I'm smelling none too fresh. You hit the boys with the Crop Reviver ball toner. All of a sudden, you're back in there. It's like Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious when he hits the NOS. You're back in play, baby. And all in the Performance Package 4.0. Plus, you get free underwear and a bag. What's not to love? Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. I mean, the problem with Ja Rule in that movie is, he was sitting there, he was trying to get the ladies, didn't have the Manscaped, you see. He didn't have the NOS, didn't have what it took to win the race. And there was the guy with the PlayStation in his car, impressive at the time, probably a hairy bush, didn't have the Manscaped. So you guys can be the Vin Diesels in your own life and your own journey with 20% off with code word submission and free shipping now. Use the code word submission. Support this show, support yourself, and change 2022 for the better with Manscaped.
100%. With that said, Michael, you mentioned UFC London. Who do you see making the biggest splash on that card out of Paddy Pimblett and Tom Aspinall? It's almost like I wouldn't say race, but like Paddy Pimblett obviously is very young in his UFC career and has already made a big splash. But then you got Tom Aspinall, who, is on a good streak and kind of almost knocking on the door of a title shot next.
Yeah, well, exactly. And listen, Paddy had a fantastic debut, and he's got a very big personality, and his star is exploding. So good for him. Well done. But he's fighting Kazula Vargas, right? No disrespect to Kazula Vargas. I'm sure he's a very, very tough guy. Tom McBride is fighting the number 5 ranked heavyweight in the world in the main event. So I hope Paddy wins. I wish him all the best. May the best man win. If Kazula, I've called his fights, he's great as well. But if Tom wins, he goes from being ranked, what is he? I think he might be like 15 now, to then being number 5 in the world. Obviously, when you're the main event, the spotlight is on you. The media demands the obligations that you have is huge. So if Tom plays this right, You know, he could wake up on March 20th, Sunday, March 20th, as a legitimate contender, a big star in mixed martial arts, which I think he will be. He's sensational. He moves like a middleweight. He's got lifelong jiu-jitsu. He's a great grappler. He's a big guy. He's strong. He's fast. And on top of it all, he's just a sound guy. What a guy this is. He's so humble and down to earth. And he's from 30 minutes from where I'm from as well. So there we go. That's probably why. Hey, no disrespect to Paddy either. Paddy's doing great things. But Tom, this could be a massive coming out party for Tom Aspinall. However, Alexander Volkov is ranked number 5 in the world for a reason. So this is not a gimmick. This is a tough fight. This is a legitimate fight. And if he wins, yeah, you never know. Maybe one more is fighting for a belt.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see what happens with Paddy as well, because obviously a lot of people sort of criticizing maybe his chin being a little bit high when he does his striking and stuff, but there's just so much impressive work that goes on into his fights, from the trash talk to the way that he fights. When you look at Paddy, you see a huge star in the UFC. Is it a situation where you think he just has to be brought up the right way, or do you think, hey, let's just throw this guy into the mix if he gets some more decisive wins here?
Well, no, I think he should take his time, much like the way Sean O'Malley did. And I know that a lot of people may kind of be a little frustrated to hear that, but you know, these guys are still kind of young in their careers. You know, let's get some experience, figure out who you are, learn the mental side, continue to round out your skill set, get comfortable with being in the octagon, fighting in front of 20,000 people on TV. You know, these are hard things to deal with. You know, the champions, the top guys, they're used to that. They're adjusted. They've done that for a long time. You know, in boxing, you got bloody 15, 20 fights before you fight anybody. Paddy's had his first one. He passed the test greatly. Yes, he got cracked, but, you know, you don't go in the rain without getting wet. It's a fight. So what? He got punched in the face. He's got great grappling credentials. I think Azula Vargas is a great logical matchup. I did prefer the Jared Gordon fight that was rumored, but still, whatever. This is still a great one as well. And yeah, you know, I don't think you should be talking about any contender fights or anything anytime soon.
I can't wait for the post-fight interview between you guys. Such great banter. But for now, guys, Michael is doing the tour down under with live shows on the 22nd in Brisbane, 23rd in the Gold Coast, Sydney 26th here in Melbourne. And by the way, we're going to need to grab
you guys going to come?
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to grab a beer. We want to have beers with Bisping, man, in Melbourne, in our hometown. Of course, Auckland on the 29th. And you can subscribe to his YouTube channel now for all the best previews, Q&As, interviews, Believe You Me podcast. Of course, follow him at Mike Bisping on Instagram, at Bisping on Twitter. One last question from me, Mike. Den of Thieves. Is there a sequel? You're at the end. You're pouring a beer. Yes. And then what's going on? I'm like, where's the sequel? I want the sequel. This is the actual part of the movie that I like the most. And then nothing happens.
Thank you very much, because it's the only part that I'm in right at the end, the final scene. So when this movie came about, I was filming Triple X, right? As we know, you know, before I won the belt. And I was filming Triple X, and then I get a phone call off this producer, and he's like, we're going to put you in this movie with Gerard Butler. And I'm like, oh my God, it's taking off. It's exploding. The movie's coming out my fucking ears. You know what I mean? And then after a while, they're like, we want you to audition for the part. I'm like, hold on a minute, this has changed. The director said before that I'm
like Max Holloway didn't have to audition for the truck driver part.
Exactly. But anyway, I'm like, what's going on? I was promised one of the main parts. Anyway, I'm kidding. The director is incredible. So I go in at the end and I set up the sequel, as you know. And when the part came out, when I read the script, I was a little disappointed, because I'm like, it's one scene. Anyway, but they went, no, Michael, you're setting up the sequel. Let me tell you, the amount of times I've heard that when I've done a small part in a movie. Oh, but we're going to do a sequel and you're going to be the star. I'm like, shut up. You know what I mean? I'm not an idiot. It is what it is. I'm still very grateful. But no, Christian Gudicast, he's the director and one of the writers, and just a great guy, as I said, and a massive fan of mixed martial arts. Yeah, the sequel is going ahead. We'll be filming that sometime soon. You know how these things are. I think it all depends on the schedule of Gerard Butler. He's a very busy man doing a lot of movies. But yeah, I should be going over to France and London, I believe, sometime in the next few months to start working on Den of Thieves too. So yeah, very, very excited for that.
Awesome. I thought Bisping was going to be the sequel to Den of Thieves, but there you go. There's going to be another one. I thought, the documentary in the UK was really, a little bit of a mix of both. But for now, guys, make sure to check out the tour. We can't wait to have you down here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Look forward to it, fellas, and I'll take you up on that beer when I'm there. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Take care.